What's up, everyone? We're back. I'm Dr. Shah.
Dr. Maxfield.
And welcome to Dr. Lee Unhinged. This is our podcast, our first time doing the podcast like this with some special guests joining us all the way from Australia and Croatia. So let's get into it. So first, you guys have heard us talk about Qure Skincare in the past. It's a brand that we love. You see us rocking the LED masks all the time, but these guys are in Miami for Cosmoprof, so we felt we had to take advantage of the opportunity to learn more about their founder story, their brand. They become friends of ours. So first, Kristina and Matt. Kristina, introduce yourself.
I'm Kristina, co-founder of Qure Skincare, and this is my brother, Matt.
That's it, huh?
Yeah.
So my name's Matt. I've been in business the last 17 years and I've built over 25 different businesses, but definitely the one I'm the most proud of is the one that I've built with my sister here. We recently got voted Australia's fastest growing brand, and the Australian Financial Review, what was it? Well, number 18 in terms of the fastest growing companies in Australia. So
yeah,
that is absolutely amazing. We see it everywhere.
Yeah.
We use all the products ourselves. We also get all the products pre-release, which is amazing. And they have some incredible stuff in the pipeline. I think everyone's going to be super excited about. So tell me, because I think this is super unique, because I tried to get my sister to do Remedy with me. She declined the offer. So, but first tell me kind of the genesis. How did Qure start? Because where it is today, it didn't start like this, obviously.
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, I think it started about 5 years ago. Kristina was always obsessed with skincare, right? And throughout my journey, I learned that there's a difference between how you make your money. So there's a philosophy that's called authentic money versus inauthentic money. And I made a lot of money maybe inauthentically, say, something that I wasn't purely passionate about. So I wanted to make sure that she didn't make the same mistake I did. So we wanted to find something that she was super passionate about, that she would love, that she could build on, have some kind of purpose. And she always wanted to do skincare. And I moved to Croatia and she kept sending me these like skincare routines, little post-it notes, like use this in the morning, Matt, use this in the afternoon. And then she got to Croatia and she saw my skin. She's like, you know, the skincare I gave you is actually working. I go, well, to be honest, I haven't been using any of it.
But his like skin was literally so smooth, glowing. He like reverse aging. I was like, whoa, these products that you're doing like really good.
And they'll call me Benjamin Button in Croatia. Anyway, then I'm like, now come into the room. And I brought into the room and I was into biohacking at the time, like health optimization. And I got this massive like LED panel in my room. And she looked at it, she's like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, I was like, whoa.
And she was like, yeah, it's done. And then she's like, I want one. I was like, yeah. She's like, how much is it? I'm like, oh, it cost me like $4,000 or $5,000. And then her heart sunk. And then immediately like a light bulb switched in. We're like, maybe we have something here, you know, because basically the fundamental right of Qure, we believe that, you know, skincare and beauty shouldn't be a luxury. It's a right to feel confident with your own skin. And the moment that her heart sunk, that she couldn't afford this, like maybe there's something here where we can start with the face only. And at the time, we thought we were the first ones in the world that thought of this. Yeah, we went on Google and we're like, oh, there's like 15 other brands. But nonetheless, you know, we knew, you know, the technology worked. I've been using it for years. It's back. NASA created, you know, LED light therapy. So we thought this is a great entry point into building a brand for her that's super authentic, that we can help a lot of people with. And that's what the DNA was formed, you know. How do we bring these clinical treatments that are super expensive and reinvent them for home at a fraction of the price?
So the whole process though, so you get this inspiration, this nice personal like desire to bring technology into people's houses, which really does seem to form the ethos of Qure and like how it's applied, because every time we get to talk to you and we get to see like what's in the pipeline, and it is kind of following this trend of where technology gets improved. Because of that, it lowers the cost. People at home get more access to things that had historically perhaps been limited to in office.
Yeah.
And so you had this LED mask. How long did it take for you to hone that product to a point where, you know, then we talk, maybe is it years later? How long did it take until we talked?
I mean, her best quality is one that frustrates me the most. It's about perfectionism, you know, like amount of love and care she puts into the products is why Qure is where it is. But I'm the business guy, you know, let's just get out, let's start getting sales. And unfortunately, you know, we rely on her to build these products. It took her like 2.5 years to build this mask. And that's why she had that idea, the customizable feature you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think I read a article in Vogue Business. I was talking about how the future of skincare is all about personalization, customization. And then me myself, I had acne always on my chin. I want to treat anti-aging everywhere else. So I was like, let's make this into a mask. So yeah, that's how we started.
That's okay. So for those of you who don't know, the Qure mask is customizable. I think people either use the red light or the blue light feature, but you could target blue light at your chin, which is going to target acne. and you can target red light at your
Everywhere
upper
else.
face is going to target those fibroblasts to stimulate collagen production.
Yeah.
So that's the genesis, and actually makes a lot more
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people actually do suffer for that hormonal acne around the jawline. So it actually does have utility there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, we're fortunate enough to have my background. I've been developing products for the last 15 years, and I had kind of had a roadmap or a blueprint on how to bring products to market. And we went to find the experts in the space in terms of engineering and product design that specialize in red light therapy. And we started working closely with them in our R&D team, and took us, 2.5 years.
Okay.
So with that in mind then, because again, we have like different skill sets here. So Dr. Shaw and I have somewhat complementary skill sets, and it sounds like you both do too. Now, specifically speaking to what your background is and like starting these businesses and then taking, I guess, an idea and a dream of creating this mask and making it a reality, what actually goes into that? Like from your perspective, what is the legwork that actually it takes to create a product and put it into production and bring in mass? Because a lot of people out there have their own dreams and ideas of things. Maybe they have like a novel idea. Maybe they have the next Velcro that they're going to invent, but they don't know how to actually turn this into reality.
It's actually not as hard as everyone thinks, right? My process today would be, think of an idea, and you can go to a design firm that can conceptualize the idea in terms of like a 3D visual. And then you take that 3D visual and you go to a factory and use the factory's engineering team to bring it to life. That's kind of the 101 process there. If you wanted to go a step further and actually focus on engineering the internals, then you probably have to, hire a firm to do that. But most of all, if you have an idea today, you can just go to a design firm, help you conceptualize the idea in like a 3D perspective, and then take that to a factory to get it made. And
I guess short of like the actual technical part of it, what about just the inertia going from idea to action? Like what advice? Because I know you give a lot of motivational advice. And actually, a lot of people don't know this, but actually Matt has given me a lot of advice on remedy, sort of behind the scenes. He's always hitting me on WhatsApp with tips and advice. And he's been actually instrumental, both Kristina and Matt, on helping me build remedy. So just what about just the inertia from idea to action?
I think the best skill you can develop is bridging the gap from idea to execution. Because I think a lot of people get stuck in that perfectionism jail. They have to have 100% of the data to make a decision. But the reality is, if you wait for 100%, by the time that time comes, you could have made 14 iterations already. So normally the rule is for us is 80% is enough. 80% enough information for us to make a decision to move forward. Because the issue is that I learned this years ago, about 15 years ago, when I launched my first product. I spent 2 years trying to develop it. And within 6 months, I changed it. Because I got to market, got feedback from the customers, because you don't know what you don't know. And the market is the ultimate truth in terms of where your product stands. So it's best to just get something out there, get feedback, and iterate on it.
Okay. All right. So you've started multiple businesses. You have Qure. I think you've also started multiple businesses before, but what's your favorite part of the journey?
Oh, that's a hard one. I mean, besides obvious things of seeing the results from the customers and their reviews, but I think honestly, working with my brother would definitely be the favorite part of the journey, because like we are stronger together. Do you know what I mean? He compliments me, I compliment him, and we're like building a legacy pretty much. And that's like really exciting to me.
How do you separate the personal from the business
You
part
can't.
of things?
Yeah, you can't. There's no chance.
The highs are highs, the lows are lows. We have this strategy where we get the shits at each other, we just block each other on WhatsApp. And that lasts like a day or so. And then, like nothing happened, we're back at it.
24 hours and then we're back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you just get used to it.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
We know it's not personal. We know we're
that's right.
emotionally mature enough at the moment where like when we know emotions get high, it's just because of
other
our
things.
passion and our care for what we're trying to do. And it's almost impossible at that time to separate it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about the wellness space, because you mentioned earlier that you were really into biohacking.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a lot of grifting in this space. There's a lot of nonsense that kind of comes out. How do you spot what's real and what's fake in this particular? Because biohacking is this, longevity space. There's a lot of supplements and influencers that push things that don't have a lot of good data behind it. How do you sort through that for your own like personal health journey?
My philosophy in life is that you have to be consistently experimenting and validating your own human experience. So if you research into a philosophy that you believe in, you have to experiment on yourself. And that's the only truth, right? The only truth you have is in how you feel. Everything else is just noise. Okay. So
I think it's sort of interesting. I just want to kind of touch on that, because I think in dermatology, we have patient data from like, let's say tens of thousands of patient data that this is a product that's going to work really well for most people that have acne, right?
Yeah.
And then somebody doesn't respond to it. Or we have data that says, well, the only ingredient that's really been shown, or the only food that's really been shown to trigger acne is sugars, right? But then someone comes in and tells me, well, every time I eat peanut butter, I break out, right?
That makes sense.
And I say, well, there's no data that shows that, but you're experiencing it. Like your own personal experience is like validity that it's an issue for you, right?
Yeah.
So I do think that there is something to that anecdotal experience, that how your body interacts with the world and what you are trying, that does actually have some weight, especially in how, and it kind of sometimes supersedes what all the other clinical data is showing in some ways.
Totally agree. And I think the biggest problem in today's society is everyone wants to outsource their authority. Everyone wants to outsource it to that doctor or that health guy online, but no one wants to take responsibility from themselves. And they just complain about like a victim mentality around, this isn't working, that isn't working. Like you're in charge of your own body, your own health, and you have to not outsource authority, understand that you have to learn these things yourself, experiment on yourself, and then get the answers yourself. Like no one's here to save you.
So there are like two things in this that you've kind of touched on. The first is the power of like trial and error, personal anecdote.
Yeah.
But then the second thing is what you mentioned in terms of like basically personal responsibility.
Yeah.
Because Dr. Sean and myself both have this like kind of backstory of not doing well, being on a bad life trajectory. And then for us, I think our biggest competition was always with ourselves, and we're always happy for other people succeeding. But like for you, what was the backstory? When did you come to the realization that you had the power to control your future in a sense, whether it was with your health or with your business?
I think it was the day when I literally woke up in the morning and I lost $5 million overnight. It was when I was like 25 years old. And at the time I remember I was like walking around the park, and then just like that rush of emotions, like, slight depression, like why me? How this happened to me after 7 years? And I was like, if I continue this chain of thought, my reality is going to just, because like life is a mirror, not a window. So my life's just going to reflect to me exactly what I'm thinking. And that's when I realized like you can't control what you look at, but you can control what you see. And like stories are the operating system of the mind. So you have to manufacture the story that's going to get you out of any situation. And what I started doing is start Googling online, like all the biggest entrepreneurs that lost money. So then I re-engineered that whole story and narrative to say, because I lost this money, now I know I'm going to be successful. Like I had to go through this, and I'm so glad I went through younger, and this is the catalyst for me being successful. And without this, I never would have been successful. So I just had to do it. Like everyone else lost money. And I think that's when you take that authority back and you realize, I am in control in my life, and depending on the stories that I play on.
Let's getting back into the business part of things. And let's maybe dive in a little bit on Qure a little bit more. But what are some of the obstacles you've faced along the way? Like one thing maybe, and how you overcame it.
There's been a lot of obstacles.
Yeah. I think off the top of my head is just keeping up with demand. You know, when you grow at 400-500% each year, it's no matter how organized you are, and many times I've done this, like structurally, something breaks along the line. You know what I mean? Supply chain breaks, and then warehousing, try and scale people, processes. And that's the hardest thing. And then getting our shipments late to customers and having the feedback from them. That was definitely probably the hardest thing. So I think for maybe the second year, we're on pre-order pretty much the whole year for some of the products, you know what I mean? And that's the hardest thing because customers are waiting and we want them to have the product, but sometimes it's out of your control. Factory tells you one thing, warehouse tells you another thing, and then they all don't deliver.
The customer service side of things is always interesting. People are always very unhappy. And I really tried to, this year for us has been like this push on empathy, right? So, telling our customer experience team, like, hey, like these people, like think about it from their like world point of view, right? Like we had some pump failures with one of our products, and it was kind of like very robotic, the answers people were getting on the pump failures. And I was thinking to myself, like, what does this person feel like if they were super excited about to get this product and it arrives and it doesn't work? And now they got to wait a few days. Or some people, they actually, when they like, let's say they're visiting the US on vacation, they'll like order the product to their hotel and then bring it back home with them because they don't want to have to pay the shipping fees for international. And so I'm like trying to get into that, like trying to tell, like teach to the customer experience team, like really like more empathy for the customer, really, because I really do think it can be a bad experience that could be just disruptive to somebody's life. Like they want to have a good experience, now they have a bad experience. And I hate when it happens to me. So I try to think about it like from the same point of view. But it can be frustrating because sometimes like you just have no control over some of the things that go wrong.
Exactly.
And, and some people can be unreasonable, obviously, with what their expectations can be. So how do you deal with the customer, because I can even from personally attest to that customer experience in Qure has gotten much better over the past 3 years or so. So how did you solve for that?
I mean, the way we solve for that is by forecasting out a lot better in terms of like what we're going to sell, how many tickets we get based on the sales, and having the agents available to like adhere to all these tickets. It's about forecasting better and giving data to our customer service team. We expect to sell this much, be prepared. Not like, hey, we're double sales next month. You know what I mean? And they're like, oh, you didn't tell us now, tickets gone up double. So it's more about planning. But onto your point there, a discussion we've been having internally, I don't know how you feel about this, is that I don't think it's not enough just to like refund customers. Because like when you think about it, if you have an experience, you go on the website, you buy a product, then you have to email to follow up. Then you have to email to get a refund. And now you've wasted that person's time.
Yep.
Like you give them the money back. What about the time they've lost? So we're trying to do things like if that ever happens, now we're giving them like a gift ticket to a spa down the road. Nothing to do with us. To say sorry for the time they wasted as well as the free product. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's not enough these days to just refund them because be more conscious of the people's time they've wasted in terms of the whole process.
Yeah. We have like a policy for this year, 2025, of like radically better in kind of everything that we do. And I completely agree with you. I think about this, like this actually started like this initial realization came to me like with patients. Cause sometimes doctors run behind. I'm actually a tremendously late person just in general. I try to be on time in clinic cause I always think about like my mom, 4 kids showing up to the doctor's office and what it took to get us there. It's a big thing, right? Yeah. So if you're late or you don't show up or you cancel or you don't give your 100% that day as a doctor to that patient. Cause to them, this is their everything. They came to you for a reason. People don't come to the doctors because they want to for any reason, right? They came to you for like solve a specific problem. So like when I realized that I was like, I have to give 110% every single time I show up to work because to them, it doesn't matter what I'm going through. Like I need to give them or try to give them the best possible experience. And so I agree with you. Like my team, it's like, how do we surprise people even beyond on customer experience? Like we initially had an issue, and I don't want to make this all about remedy, but we had an issue with separation of our lip product when it first launched. We refunded everybody that complained about it because it was a small percentage. But we actually kept a list of everybody that had the complaint. And when the new batch came, we sent everybody a product for free. They weren't expecting it. But to me, it was important because I didn't want, because it was the first batch when we launched the brand, and I didn't want someone's experience to be, this product's not good for me. Cause then they would never buy again, And to me, I feel like I would let them down.
Yeah. And I think we did something recently fairly similar with the water filters.
Yeah.
So our version 1 faucet filter, we to be honest, we rushed it, right?
Yeah.
We rushed it and we felt so bad that we produced that product and sold it to people that when the new version came out that we actually patented and spent another year designing, we sent everyone a free unit upgrade.
So
it's replacement.
With that then, because we've gotten to see this process and we can actually take this into not only the water filter, but I want to hear your thoughts on some of these other newer innovations that we know are coming out. But like, so we had the V1 of the water filter, which I did use actually, and only until I moved did those lived on my faucets perpetually. But then we have also seen V2 of the water filter, which is substantially better. Yeah. Now,
I'm telling you, the Apple of skincare. Like, and he knows because like even in his shower when he stays at our house, so he has the Qure shower filter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was definitely the goal.
Yeah, I reckon. Yeah.
Exactly what you said. That was like our tagline. Let's be the Apple of skincare.
I love it. I think it's showing through too, because again, the water filter now like has much improved like practical utility. Like no one has this in America yet, as far as I understand, but you get to like flip the faucet around. So you could like, if you wanted to treat it like a drinking fountain, you could even do that, which I found terrific because I think it was only my complaint. No one else seems to have this issue, but whenever I washed my face, like I had a hard time getting my face or mouth like under the faucet. Apparently like no one else does that. But
well, nobody else. I think he washes his face by putting his face under the sink. Where most people bring the water to their face. So maybe I have to do a tutorial.
Your way's too messy. No, I don't quite do it like that. But it's like the solves for those like even little practical issues that you may not think of or like wouldn't encounter until later. That's like more of what I'm seeing from Qure in terms of product development, where everything is not only like functional and innovative, but there's again like that extra layer of thought. So what can you give us in terms of what is coming out this year? Is like anything you feel like you can share? Because I mean, I know the water filters are coming to the US. We've seen the shower filters, which no one else gets to have, and they're actually pretty sick. I've showered with that many times now, and I can't wait to install my own at my house because I have those. Thanks for shipping them. But what have you got? What's going to be exciting this year that you want to share?
you want to share?
I mean, we're out to trying to conquer every product category we can. So we did LED in terms of the face, neck and neck. We did micro needling at home, which would go to 2.0. That's coming out, which is going to be huge, I think, because I don't know if you guys realize, as soon as we start getting a bit of traction with that product, we came to you guys straight away. We're like, how do we make this better? And that's what we did with all our derms that we have on the board. And we're probably most excited for that, the 2.0 micro infusion, because that's going to be, we've patented a mechanism, and there's like a super unique mechanism that allows the serum to inject into the skin at the precise time it should. That's all I can say.
Okay.
Now,
That's a lot.
and then we have a whole new product category coming out in the hair region, we can probably say, and that's in June.
Okay,
Yeah.
June. Okay, I want to talk first about. So I do want to get to that new one in June because, like, for some reason, we've actually shot a lot of hair content this weekend. Dr. Shaw, myself, it's like apparently on our mind. But the microneedling is such an interesting story for me because for us personally, like, and professionally, there's been kind of this dynamic shift in how we approach the device. And I'll give everybody kind of a little bit of backstory here. When the Qure microinfusion system came out, this is a micro stamping device. And the contrasting major item at the time was a derma roller, which is really popular on social media. A derma roller is not a one-time use. It's a repeated use, like rolling device with needles on it. You roll it over your skin. Pretty universally, I think dermatologists were against it and thereby inherently against the idea of microneedling at home because this was traditionally an in-office procedure. And again, at the time, the device being used at home was just not something like anyone wanted to see being done. Then the Qure microinfusion device comes around, and I think it was definitely the first one I saw. But all of a sudden, you have this like one-time use sterile tip that solves the sterility and bacterial issue, and then you have a smaller needle size, which saved the depth issue because derma rollers can get really deep and really aggressive needles. And then you had the serum, which was specifically formulated to be injected, which solved the foreign body issue that we'll see with what people were doing at home. And despite all of that, I was still hesitant, and Dr. Shaw was even more hesitant to even talk about this product.
Yeah. You converted me all definitely for sure. I mean, I think the steps you take in safety, because to me, like, what could be worse is that somebody, right, they have hope to get better skin and they get worse skin, right? And so that was my fear, was because, you know, when you're broadcasting, right, you don't know who's listening, right? And you don't know how much research they've done or what steps they're going to take. And so to me, I always thought about, which is why I'm not a big fan of recommending fragrance and skincare products, is because even though most people won't have a problem, there's still a percentage that will. And then that percentage, as the content goes further, becomes a larger and larger number, an absolute number of people, right? Especially because, you know, we had videos that were doing, 10, 20 million views. I was more and more concerned about the safety components of things. And so as you've rolled out more and more safety features, the hypochlorous acid, the sterile needles in the individual packs, the gold tips, which have some antimicrobial properties, all those types of things to me kind of converted me. But I still feel like people need more education in terms of, but it's available on the website so people can kind of learn about how to use it. But to me, what would be bad is if someone had an adverse reaction hoping to have better skin. But I think you've taken a lot of those considerations in.
Right. And so for us too, and I think the dermatology community at large, like, you'll see more people talking about it now. Like in the beginning, I felt like it was just us. I felt like we were kind of on an island. But for me, from a practicality standpoint, like objectively, I was like arguing internally with myself. I'm like, okay, well, what were the problems I actually have with derma rolling at home? Okay, like, and again, objectively, like, does this check those boxes? And it kind of did. So for me, I felt more comfortable over years recommending it because I no longer had an objective argument against it. But it really was a bit of an evolution. And I've definitely seen Dr. Shaw warm up to this substantially more over the last few years.
Well, I actually think it works. That's the other thing. It's like, I think it's safe and I think it's effective. And I think as people have learned more about skincare, because you have to remember the skincare landscape was very different 4 or 5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And even 2 years ago, where, people were still learning the basics. And then as you learn the basics of safety and how to use products and not over exfoliate, then you can kind of get more advanced. And now I feel like that those pillars are in place and they're more widely available through multiple touch points, that people can have that. And then now they're going to want something to really step it up without having to spend a ton of money by going into an office. And so I do think that to get outsized results, you do need to kind of push it to some extent. And I think the device does that.
Yeah. I think the reason why we loved it so much was because we used to do it in clinic, you know, and we just couldn't go as frequent as we would like to actually see the benefits. And that's why I think the solution works well as well, because you can do it more frequently at a very cost-effective rate. Because if you do it once a year, I don't know, but you guys know better than we do, but you're not going to see a huge difference in skin, right?
All right. So other news, because, you know, I want to get a little personal here. You know, I just had my first daughter, and, you know, Dr. Maxfield has kids and, you know, has been married a long time. We've both been married a long time. You know, you guys have some big news coming up. We're excited for.
Yeah. We're both getting married this year. Yeah. We're both having kids this year. God permits.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting, Johnny, how you juggle that. I'm probably going to have to take some more advice from you guys, not just on the skincare side, but how to run a family and a business at the same time.
Yeah, well, I think we haven't quite figured out how to balance everything. So I don't know that we have great advice there, but just super excited for you all. You have the business that's growing. That's like your first baby. Then these 2 new relationships, or not even that new relationships, but getting married soon. So it's a big commitment. So I'll be curious to see kind of how you are, because you have so many structures and processes in place. You know, how you navigate kind of both of these worlds.
Yeah, so am I, to be honest. But I think for me personally, I don't know, as a young guy, I think what I did from the age of 17 was to get to this stage, was to have the family, was to get the girl. And everything I did was in pursuit of that, to be the best version of myself so I can attract the best partner. And I was kind of worried at the start, like once I found her, like, would I still be motivated to work? And I think it did diminish for like a month or 2, to be honest. Like I was like, why am I doing all this stuff for? You know, I've got money, I've got her, I don't need to do anything else. But I think that when we do something that's has such strong mission attached to it and such more purpose, and it's not about the money, then that kind of quickly came back, and I'm probably more motivated than ever to now do it for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just as much.
Let's talk about purpose then a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, what are you most proud of from either the businesses, personal experiences? Maybe start with Kristina.
Yeah.
What are you most proud of with Qure?
I think from having an idea and then executing it. It's like one thing to think about a product, and it's another thing to actually bring it out the way we did. Like completely customizable, completely not white label as well, like really from the ground up, and then seeing everyone use it. And I think like there was one moment that really like got me good. It was when we were in Hard.
Yeah.
And my cousin used to suffer from like cystic acne all the time.
Like bad. Like
really
it was
bad.
horrible. Like he looked like that horror story. No, he did look like horror story.
But anyway, we saw him at a wedding, and his face was like all clear. And we're like, wow, what are you using? He's like, oh, your mask. And we're like, no, it wouldn't have been ours.
No, but it gets better than that.
What?
He said that he was using this mask for a year or 2, nothing happened. And then he saw you guys promote the Qure mask online. He goes, I might as well buy it and try it. And then when he told us he's been using his mask, we didn't know it was ours at the time. We go, can you show us which one? And then he showed us the picture.
I didn't believe him. I was like, it's not our mask.
And then he showed us the picture, and it was our mask.
Yeah.
And it like literally transformed his life. We got the best testimonial ever. Like he didn't have confidence to walk outside, how bad his, acne was.
He was too shy to go to dermatologist in clinic, all that. So that was definitely like a moment that I was like definitely most proud of. I'm like, this is exactly what we set out to do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Our reviews are pretty grounding experience, right? Like you're in the mix of everything. It's like something went wrong. You have a supply chain issue, your inventory's low, and you're kind of like in the day-to-day of it. And then some like really profound review comes in.
Yeah.
So like we use Slack, which is like a way for businesses to like message each other, I guess, inside. And so it's like somebody from my team will just like screenshot like a review or a comment, and it just kind of like sets the priority back. It's like, okay, like we really are on like a mission to help people's skin. So I do think that like the testimonials, the reviews, I think that gives you purpose, at least for me.
100%.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. Yeah.
All right, so what are you most proud of?
To be honest, it's nothing business related. I think I'm most proud at the moment of the partner that I found recently. That's probably for me. But business wise, for me now, it's just like providing impact. The people that I'm coaching currently, and be able to help them and help my sister also find her passion and the business that she loves. That's what I'm most proud about at the moment.
So with that then, so first off, because I know the answer here and I want you to verbalize it, but like how long have you known your future spouse?
It's 5 months.
5 months. So even before now though, like you've kind of mapped out your life, and I think it's very interesting because you had a goal in mind. The business was to provide stability, also to get to a point where you could attract the partner you wanted, and then you achieved that. But obviously you already had something in mind of what that would look like. And then when you know, and you pulled the trigger on it and then exit now, like you're getting married 5 months, 6 months later or something like that. That's actually pretty unique and a very thoughtful way to approach life, even relationships.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, look, I follow the principle that I believe I'm the creator of my own reality. I think life is just the images and thoughts that you express. And I did like a perfect partner document. Now you're going to think it's probably weird, but
did.
I literally wrote out every single quality from her values, the way she looks, her hobbies, everything out in a document about, what was it, a year and a half ago?
Yeah.
And I was showing her and now fiance, I'm like, I'm going to attract this girl into my life. So, and then every night I visualized it. And within 9 months, she just appeared.
I think that's a very real thing, though. Actually, I think when you know what you want and you set out, you're not going to settle for less. For one, you're not going to actually invest your heart, your emotions, your time, and energy into something you know isn't the best. And I have this personal philosophy of like never settling. It was in relationships. It's currently with employees. Like whenever I'm interviewing someone, I'm like, if I'm not your best fit, I'm not the right employer for you. And likewise, if you're not my best fit, then it's not the perfect scenario, because you will find the perfect match, whether it's professionally or personally.
Agreed.
And my wife, similarly, you're not the only one who did that. She actually also had a very long checklist she made. She actually gave it to her parents to hold her accountable when she was like a young teenager. And she had this list, and somehow miraculously I met every one of those facets. So similarly, we had like an expedited idea, like and like objectively, we were both at a point in our lives where we were fairly certain as to what we wanted next. So that's pretty. Now the coaching side of this, though, I want to get into this a little more too, because clearly you are very motivated. You have a lot of different ideas in terms of like spirituality and also how to like execute that in practically in life. What are you investing in the people you're coaching? Like, what are the things they're coming to you for? What are you trying to help them build and achieve?
So it's all about the limiting and competing beliefs that someone has within them that's stopping them from the success they desire. And for me, when I'm working with people one-on-one, it's about identifying what competing beliefs and negative beliefs they have and limiting beliefs they have and trying to dissect them and recreate new beliefs. Because the way the reality creation works is that we have information from the outside world that we receive through our 5 senses. We interpret that through our consciousness, then we form beliefs, and those beliefs form our actions, and then we get our results. So if we're conscious of the beliefs we have and we can reform them to the way that we want to create our life, then everything just works out. And like limiting beliefs around you as a person, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough. And then negative beliefs are around the thing that you want, like rich people are evil or rich people are depressed. And a lot of people have like a money blueprint, which they've absorbed from their parents, and they don't even realize it. And they adopt these habits from their parents where they treat money, and then they absorb their blueprint, and then they get usually the same outcome. So for me, it's just about identifying their internal beliefs and trying to restructure them, reform them in a way to be successful.
So 2 things with that I think are incredibly interesting. One is we'll start the second one first, because the blueprint from your parents thing, like this is real. Statistically, we know so many people will not get out of their social sphere that their parents were in. I mean, I think the number is like 5% will actually get out to the next social stratosphere outside of their parental ones. And for me, I still very distinctly remember the first upper middle class family that I really met. Like it was my best friend in high school, like junior of high school. I think that was the first time I was exposed to like an upper middle class family where like they weren't worried about like month to month paychecks.
Yep.
And that was like life-changing for me to actually just see that done where there was some sort of stability. And then further in life, same thing, like you get exposed to a new person, like, or they're very successful here, or like they're very successful in their marriage, or like, wow, they like have $1 million. How did they get there? Like, or they're a doctor, like never saw that in my life.
Yeah.
And to just know that exists and see it done, it does create something within you that you might be able to actually capture and replicate. But the second part of it is, so that's one part, like you have to see it done. And then the second part of it is your first statement, and I was like looking in the mirror. And all of those negative thoughts that you mentioned were actually like self-inflicted. It was like your own worst enemy. Your limiting factor might actually be you. And it doesn't mean it doesn't have anything to do with your external situations. But if you can push someone beyond their self-doubt, then maybe the future is limitless.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And it's like a very simple process, right? The first thing is you have to identify all the limiting beliefs you have. Then you ask yourself is like, where's the tangible evidence this is even true? And a lot of time they can't find it, right? And then the second part is you find when did it like manifest? When did this belief happen? Sometimes one experience can create your whole belief, right? Or one moment, one thing you read, one person you met. And the third part is like, what would I have to do for this belief to no longer be true anymore? And that's kind of like the formula we kind of go through to try and to break this stuff. And it works. And for me personally, like I maxed out when I was about 29 years old. I made money and I lost all motivation to work. And I was going through this process that I do with my coaching clients. And what I realized is that when I was in Mykonos, I met a billionaire. And he was telling me this story how he bought a $100 million yacht, parked in Monaco, and then looked to the right of him. And it was a yacht that was worth 150 million. And he was immediately depressed. He's like, F this. So what he did, he sold everything. He started playing guitar like hippie on the beach. And what I didn't realize, I took that, from that moment, I took that whole, I guess, experience as like rich people, ultra rich people are depressed and it's not worth doing. So I kept self-sabotaging myself in terms of my success, my business, because of this belief I had until I uncovered it and realized why. And then I created a new one.
And then also too, the sense of purpose though too, because you've both said something in terms of what you felt like was very important in your life. And Kristina specifically, it was tied to a person in your life who was very close to you. And for you, Matt, like with the coaching being like a huge source of like pride for you, there is something that, and then again, we've talked about this before, but the value in investing in people around you, and even with you, Dr. Shah, like how much the reviews impact you. And there's something like where ultimately it does seem like a big sense of purpose comes from your ability to impact those like relationally, like and elevate people around you. And I've seen that with the Qure products too. I can remember one patient who came in and she actually somehow she didn't find it through us. I only say that because like her faces are like everywhere on this thing, but like she brought in this mask. She's like, yeah, this changed my life. I just wanted you to know. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. Like, and just poking the bear a little bit. I was like, where do you hear about it? She's like, I don't know. I just like bought it from my friend who's using it. And so I bought it. And like, I just wanted to bring in some things I felt worked for me. And I was like, oh, it's really amazing. And so for you, like, again, that was very impactful for her. But I guess too, like directionally, do you have any specific personal goals? Obviously you're getting married, you're going to have kids. Are there any things like for you, Kristina, that you want to achieve this year specifically, whether your personal or professional life?
Probably just continue with Qure in terms of staying true to our core values, not rearing off into what's trending. Because I feel like that can be pretty hard to do sometimes, see something that's trending and like fall into that trap. So I think my goal is just to stay true to our core values, not get distracted, and just continue to create timeless, science-backed skincare solutions that can actually help people and just constantly develop. That's definitely the goal.
Yeah.
What about you, Matt? Anything specific on your radar? Like, do you have a bucket list for this year?
Yeah, this year, yeah. I mean, I really want to get the coaching business at a level where I can help more people. And then for me now, I'm creating like, it's called the Success Vortex. It's like modules in terms of like a mindset module and how people can start from when they don't have a business and get them in the right mindset to create the business that they always dreamt of. So I really want to get that out into the public and help a lot more people in that light.
So how did you change your relationship with money? Because you said you're 29, have everything that you've ever were pursuing at the time. And I think we've talked about this before, but sometimes achieving your goal is kind of it's a very like hollowing experience in some ways, right? Because I remember this feeling like I was studying so hard for 2 years to do really well on our USMLE exam. It's like the exam that determines like what specialty you can match into in medicine. And it's like the determining text. Like if you do well on this test, you kind of, your options are endless. Take the test, got exactly where I wanted to be with it. And then I felt kind of empty for a little bit. It's kind of an interesting feeling. Yeah. So how do you continuously stay motivated as you achieve new goals?
For me personally, the goal is not the end goal, is the identity and the person you become on the way to the top of the mountain. And the top of one mountain is just the start of the next mountain. So as long as you have the next mountain to climb, you're always okay. But I think a lot of people, they get to a certain goal, like they exit a company, they don't have the next plan in place, what they're going to do. And that's when they fall into that hole, I think.
How do you, like, is gratitude an important thing to you? Like, do you ever take time after, like, let's say a big win? Let's say that you guys do great on Black Friday, for example. How do you take the time out to be thankful, grateful for what you achieved? Or is that not an important part of your paradigm? Because I don't know.
I believe that we don't experience life. We experience what we focus on, right? So most people focus on what's missing instead of what they have. Most people focus on what they can't control instead of what they can control. And I think that's the biggest problem. So when you focus on things that you can control every single day, you disconnect from the outcome. Whatever happens, happens. If you focus on what you have instead of what you don't have, then you can live a pretty fulfilled life in every scenario, in every single walk of life. You know what I mean? Not just those moments.
Yeah, so I totally agree here. And So I two things, like the journey. It's all about the journey in a sense, because like you have the mountains, you climb them, you reach the peak, and it can be dissatisfying, or you'll be disillusioned once you get there. Like, oh wow, that didn't equate to much. You see this all the time. I was just reading an article with Michael Phelps. Like he won all his gold medals. He struggled with depression massively after he won his gold medals, because all of a sudden it's like, well, that was my purpose. I've achieved my purpose, and now what? And I see this huge shift too, like especially as you both enter this new phase of life with both marriage and kids. It is interesting because I think the mountains change in a sense. It's not always like the financial mountain, the creative mountain, the professional mountain. And we see this a lot in medicine too, is like you conquer medicine or you achieve being a doctor, which is a really, really long road. And then all of a sudden, like something in life just hits. And then you like the next mountain, all of a sudden like becomes, it's the kid, like it's the relationship, or it's like community, or it is interesting how in life that kind of changes, and is a fairly dynamic process. And I've lived two lives. Like I've lived a life where I had like very little to nothing and I was stressed, and I've been able to step outside of that into where I have like some excess. But as long as I agree, as long as you're focused on the journey, that like sense of satisfaction, it really doesn't go away.
Because I think with certain level of financial success, our life isn't going to change too much at the moment. Like we get a bit better car, a bit bigger house, like fundamentally our life will be pretty much the same.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever looked at it from that perspective. Now you mention it, it makes sense. I think a lot of people forget like how much they've changed as a person as a result of something, and the experiences. They think about what a KPI is, right? So anybody who's in marketing or any business like this, they'll understand that KPI is a key performance indicator. It's what a lot of people measure the success of something by. And so I think we're so used to measuring everything by a KPI, like what score did you get on the test? How much money did you make? How successful was your marketing campaign? And not a lot of it is like how well is the house built actually? And I think that's kind of what you're talking about. And I've never really realized like how many skills, just thinking about it, that we've had to learn over the last 4 years to even, we were looking at our old videos yesterday, and like, we used to shoot on his Android phone, and we had all types of audio issues. We still have issues with recording, but, the skill sets that we've learned to actually like make us either better people, better business people, better husbands, better fathers, like all those things along the way that we're learning. Like, I feel like a lot of times we don't actually take the time to think about like the people that we become through the experiences or the mountains that we climb.
1,000,000%. And have you heard of the concept of gap and gain? I think Dan Sullivan, his strategic business coach, came up with it. He goes, a lot of entrepreneurs live in the gap, meaning that you're here and your ideal self is here, or the business success is here. And they keep measuring themselves based on where they are and that gap. But they don't do the opposite. They don't measure backwards in terms of the gain. What have you gained? So if you consistently look back and see what you've gained, you're consistently fulfilled and happy. But a lot of entrepreneurs, because we're hungry, we keep comparing ourselves to the gap. You know what I mean? Our ideal self, our $100 million business. Don't care about the $50 million business I have now. We keep measuring backwards, I think you'll be a lot happier.
Yeah, I think in some ways, like all of this has kind of made me a better person in a way. And like I think my motivations and intentions have gotten better with time. Like, have you ever heard of this concept of like your sort of intentions or your goals can become purified in the process of like sort of doing them?
No, I haven't heard.
But I do believe that initially when you start off, and you can have a motivation to do anything initially. And it could be maybe something that someone would look at and say, oh, that's not a good motivation. Let's say making a lot of money is a motivation for somebody, right? And externally, a lot of people would say, oh, well, like you shouldn't chase money, right? Like that's kind of like the ruling dogma when it comes to that. But I think a lot of times, like let's say, for example, Kristina, you start out initially, your only goal with Qure is to make money. And then that review comes in and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
And then suddenly now your intentions are shifted, right?
Yeah.
I initially started this because I wanted to pursue money, but now my intentions have become like purified in this process. And now it's more about like the purpose of like actually improving the quality of somebody's life. And I do think that sometimes, even if your motivation starts out wrong, that you can become a better person through the process.
Yeah.
I think it's all in how you receive it though, too, because if it's like a positive experience like that, you have the opportunity to kind of synthesize that and integrate it into who you are and who you become, or you can ignore it. And it's the same thing with like negative things. They can refine you through fire, and we've all had those stages in life. Hopefully they're few and far between, but then you're forced to like become better and like more resilient through it, or they can defeat you and you never move on. So, I don't know. I think that is our reaction to life, how life treats us. And then again, like our own self-reflections, that really just does change so much about your life trajectory. But it's again, there is so much that's up to you that people don't realize.
Yeah.
So I actually love your mindset, because to be honest, in your coaching specifically, because I know for me, if like if you told me that when I was like 15, I either would not believe it, or if I accepted it, it would have accelerated my life journey by a decade, because I would have never thought that to be true.
Last night we were at dinner and, he said to me, I was kind of giving all the reasons why, things could go wrong. I'm a very practical, like pragmatic person. And so I think about I'm very optimistic as well. So, I really do think like the greatest things can happen, but I always have like an A, a B, and a C, a D plan just in case things do go wrong. And then, kind of never need the B plan, hopefully. Right. But you're kind of like, don't even have that mindset. Like, why are you thinking about all the things that could go wrong? Or, I think you're inviting those things into your world. And I did think about that when I went home, and I was like, I do kind of have like a limiting mindset in some ways on, this could go wrong or this could go wrong. And maybe I should set my expectations a little bit lower and be happy with those expectations.
Yeah, I fundamentally believe like the world isn't as it is as you are. So if you plan for rainy days, you'll get rainy days, and having that abundance mindset is critical, like to being successful.
So are you saying if the weather says there's going to rain, not to bring an umbrella, or are you bringing the umbrella?
I'm telling you now, you're not going to believe me. I had a company called Football Supplements, right? And we had all these big football players and teams at Atletico Madrid we had, and we paid $400,000 for a sponsorship. And we had one day of filming for 30 minutes. And then we're on the way, or we booked the flights, the whole team's there, camera crews, it cost us a bomb. And they're forecasting rain. And I just kept saying, everyone's like panicking, plan B, plan C, plan D. I go, guys, it is not going to rain. They're all stressing out of their minds. I go, you don't understand. It's just not going to rain. Like there's no need. And I'm telling you, we got to the ground. It was raining everywhere. There was a big sunny patch around the pitch. It was raining all around us, but where we filmed, and the moment we stopped filming, it started raining. So
They don't believe you.
no one does.
I'm implementing this at scale in my mind.
I mean, do you know the way I look at these things, right? I said stories are the operating system of the mind. So when I think about these philosophies, I think about them, if me believing this, what are the behaviors that's going to change? And are those behaviors going to make my life better or worse? So me thinking I'm the creator of my reality, me thinking that the words and language I use can have inbuilt failure mechanisms. What's the change of behavior? I'm always positive. I'm always thinking positive. I'm always looking for options, how to move forward. I'm not looking backwards. It's just a net win. Like I can't be worse for me by having that mindset. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, that's logical.
Yeah.
I think being positive is one of the best things that you can be when you look at any scenario, because there's something in the US. I don't know if you guys have it in Australia or Croatia. You've heard of Alcohol Anonymous or AA?
Yeah.
There's like a famous prayer in the beginning of AA, which is like, God give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I don't know exactly what it is, but essentially it's like, no, I haven't, but I'm familiar with the prayer. But I think there's something about that is like, accept the things that I cannot change, and then like, be able to tell the difference between them. But like, if you can't change something, right? Like let's say, for example, the weather, right? You can't change the weather, right? And, you're just going to be focused on this negative element, right? The whole time, what's the benefit? What's the net benefit to you to like focusing on the thing that you cannot change? Like focus on the things you can change, and I have adopted this mentality. And I think it's just made me a much happier person, because I'm like, if something's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong, and we'll figure it out when it goes wrong.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
Well, not even that. Like, how do you know what's going wrong is actually bad? Have you heard of the Chinese fable?
That's a good one.
Yeah. Have you heard of that Chinese farmer? So in short, right, there's a Chinese farmer. He has a horse. Horse runs away, and everyone in the village is like, "Oh, your horse ran away. Poor you." He's like, "Maybe." The next day, the horse came back with 3 more horses. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, you're so lucky. You have extra horses." He's like, "Maybe." The day after, his kid's playing with the horses, because there's 3 of them. He fell off and broke his leg. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, you're so unlucky. The kid broke his leg." He's like, "Maybe." The day after, the conscription came from the army, chose all the kids, but not his, because he broke his leg. And everyone's like, "You're so lucky." And he's like, "Maybe." So the moral of the story is you never really know. You can't connect the dots looking forward, only looking back.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it's a beautiful reframe. Yeah.
That's good.
It is. It's such
That's good.
I don't know. I firmly believe that. I was actually talking to one of our colleagues about the same kind of thing. And it's like, like there's valleys in this journey, and I actually don't know where they're going to land, but I've already kind of learned that lesson along the way that like, I don't believe I know the future, and I don't believe that I'm actually wise enough to know what's best for me sometimes. And so like, if there's a better plan in store, sometimes that's going to look like a step backwards in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm actually content and gotten to a place where I'm like, look, it is what it is. Like, I do believe that like God is going to have like a plan. And then a year down the road, maybe I'll know the purpose of why I had to go through this. This has happened so many times in my life now. I'm like completely at peace with this idea. But interestingly, kind of talking about like the negativity that you brought up earlier, like how do you deal with that negative person? And then what you talked about and like in your mind, seeing like the successful outcome and like not letting anything else come in. Even if you look at the example of the rain you gave, if it rained, if you are someone who has that like positive outlook, or if you're someone who has a like success mindset, it doesn't matter if it rains, because when you approach a problem, I talk to my staff like this all the time, and even my family, when I say I want to get something done, there is no scenario where that fails in my mind. And then people will come up, that like negative person will be like, okay, well, what happens if this? What happens if with this? What happens with this? What happens with this? And I'm like, I don't care. Yeah. It doesn't matter, because you will find a solution. It's like you will see a solution if you're that positive person who like knows the outcome. It's a matter of what it takes to get there. Conversely, the other mindset, and I've been both people. So I'm not saying this is a critique of that negative person. I have been that person. The other one, you will stop and you will be defeated with the first change, and you won't be able to get past.
Or you
that
won't
point.
even start, right?
Or you won't even start.
Yeah, it's funny. Like TikTok was going through this whole ban thing. And TikTok got banned, and but TikTok is my biggest platform. But I'm a board certified dermatologist. See patients, I'll be fine, right? But because it's my biggest platform, everybody knows it. Everyone's texting me, "You okay? Is everything gonna be okay?" He bought me flowers. He's like, "Oh, it's gonna be in Pepto-Bismol to control my stomach or something like this," and I'm like, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Well, you know what mainly came into my mind when that happening? That was the best thing could ever happen to you. So I think you over-index on TikTok, and the audience is not as strong. And then you would have like take all your energy and put it on Instagram, and would have built a lot more authority on Instagram than you did it in TikTok. I thought.
I think to your point, it could have been like the farmer. It could have been a better thing that came out of it. And I really felt like that. I was like, okay, let's be fine. Like Sometimes I do think the mindset makes a big difference, and I had friends that were messaging me like, oh, it's all over, this percentage of my income's going to go away and all this stuff. And like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. We figured it out. We figured it out. We always figure it out. Yeah. So I do think like how you frame it, but I think to your point, all the like if a rainy day is going to come, like as long as you build yourself up, like you've built your values and you've sort of channeled who you've become as a person, that's something no one can really take away from you. So I think it is probably the most important thing to build. Yeah. Right. It's the only thing that you can be sure is going to be there tomorrow.
Because security is an inside out process. People like, when I have this like property, the residual income, then I'm secure. No, you're secure when you build the skill sets in yourself and the mentality that no matter what happens, you'll succeed. And I remember after business 6, I felt that. I was like, you know what? No matter what, I'm going to be okay now, because now I'm secure inside that I can conquer anything that comes my way. That's real security.
All right. So let's, because we have a lot of people who are interested in skincare.
Yeah.
What do you think, just sort of skincare industry wise, have you both learned through this process that you didn't know before? Because there's been a lot of eye-opening experiences for me, like on the business side of things. Because like I'm recommending products all the time, and I didn't understand fully like how these things are created or how they get in people's hands and how businesses look at these things. But what have you learned about the skincare industry over the past 5-6 years that have been eye-opening for you?
Oh, good question.
I mean, for me, it's just that a lot of people, I don't want to say shady, but they're marketing their products with no compliance factors, and it makes it extremely hard for us to compete. Yeah. And they're lying in terms of the ingredients and the efficacy of like the percentage of the active ingredients consistently. For example, we have some competitors with our microinfusion. They don't do the sterile needles. We know we visited the factory because they know the price they sell for. It's not possible if they produce what we produced. And then they have claims like, wrinkle-free skin in 2 weeks. Yeah. And unfortunately, humans are humans. They're just trying to find any solution that's going to, solve their problem. And they'll just believe it because they want to believe it's true. You know what I mean? They want to, even though they think that can't be, but you know what? Imagine if it is, you know what I mean? And then
it's a pain point for them.
It's such a pain point, and they just have so much hope that this will solve their pain point. And then it makes it hard for us to market on such a compliant, legal way when we're competing against these type of people.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people know this about skincare, but there is when you choose an ingredient in a formula, right? There is the bulk of the formula, and then there's the raw ingredient within that bulk. And this was the first realization that happened to me was, I said I want to put this ingredient at this level, and they're like, and the lab's like, well, you could just put the bulk in at that level, which means like the actual active ingredient is like 1/10 of that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I want to put the raw ingredient at that level. Like nobody does that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's like super misleading.
Yeah.
So that was an eye-opening experience to me, was that like a lot of times the percentages that you see on ingredient lists are not actually accurate at all. They're talking about the bulk, which includes a lot of filler ingredients that make up that bulk. So that to me actually was something I learned as well.
Yeah.
What about you?
What have I learned along the way? I feel like I've learned a lot of stuff. I feel like what I've learned in the skincare game is that you should always still stick true to your guns. Like, I'm not a proper expert in skincare, but I know what I want. And because I'm the target market, I feel like I've nailed that pretty well. I think it's really easy to listen to other people's advice or what they think you should do. But I've learned that if I feel something is right, then I've got to stick to it. And it'll come true like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I think we hired a lot of formulators and working with you guys, and everyone has a different opinion as to what to do, like who's right. And at some point, I think, like you're saying,
all in one
find your
place
gut.
serum. There were so many manufacturers that are like, no, you can't do that.
you can't do this. Yeah.
Oh, so
These
many
ingredients
times.
don't
Yeah, it's
go.
like, what the-
Yeah, so
I'm like, well, someone's got to gotta do it. Someone's got to do
Who's
it.
lying here? Who's
Yeah.
lying here?
All right, so then tell me this, because you guys work with a lot of influencers, right, in different capacities. We've become friends.
Yeah.
But tell me kind of like what you've learned about sort of the influencer world. What tips do you have for influencers as a brand owner? Because that's sort of an interesting thing.
Tip for who? The brand owners.
Like, what have you learned about like the influencer world as a brand owner? Because you actually you kind of see the behind the scenes of like how this works for influencers.
Yeah, I think that you just have to be super careful with obviously who you choose, because branding is the positive associations and negative associations someone makes for your brand. And choosing a certain stereotype of influencer is going to create a certain association with your brand.
Yeah.
And that can be a negative play. You know what I mean? Even though they might have reach, they might give you sales, but then they create a certain association around your brand that you might not want. And that's backfired on us, a couple times. In the early days, we didn't carefully curate who we wanted. I think it's a lot more than just sales, right? People then associate your brand with that person. And do you really want to be associated with that person beyond their credentials? Them as a person, how they're perceived in the market. I think you have to go, data points deeper than just how many followers they have and what platform.
Yeah, definitely touching on that. And also just them as a whole, not only seeing like one piece of content that they do that you like, but generally liking everything that they do, what they stand for, what they're preaching, and they're actually actioning what they preach as well. So they're staying authentic to themselves as well. Yeah. It's important to us.
Okay. Any tips for influencers that, would be helpful for them? Because like, I think as a brand, I think influencers don't really know what brands are looking for or what's important to them. But what do you feel like is a good move as an influencer to build, either get the attraction of a brand or build a better relationship with a brand you're already working with?
I think this has to be less transactional.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of times we want to get on the calls of influencers before paying them large money. They don't even want to do that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So they're not really invested in the relationship. They don't want to build a relationship with us. You can tell they just want to get paid, do the piece of content, and that's it. Where if they actually got on a call with us, we could have properly formed a nice narrative or a story, which would have got better results and would have allowed us to come back to them with more opportunities.
Yeah.
But instead, it's like there's a gatekeeper, maybe the agent, or they don't have time, and like, here's my rates, and that's it. And they don't want to get a call with us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's a fundamental wrong move, particularly if you're dealing with a brand like ours is a decent brand. You know what I mean? Like, you'd want to partner with us long term. And I think
we're
that
with the brand.
yeah, and they don't have a long term view. It's a very short term view.
Yeah. That's good.
And for them, I think that they're better off, and you guys know better than I would, they're better off working with a small number of brands than 50 brands or 20 brands, because then their credibility gets shot.
Yeah.
If they're pushing everything, you know what I mean? And how many times we see brands promoting, say, 5 LED masks, So
Yeah.
how do you lose, trust of your audience? You said this one was the best, but then 3 months later you said this is the best. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's just having a long-term play, because I guess everyone's after the money, but
Yeah. It's interesting. When we first started this, we actually didn't know people made money doing influencing.
Yeah,
like
okay.
legitimately, we kind of like knew that there were like, the Kim Kardashians of the world that were making money on Instagram and things like that. But we had no concept that like people were getting paid for posts. Like I created content for 6 months. YouTube, we were in it like 4 months before, maybe a year before we ever did a brand deal on YouTube. And we turned down many things before, we ever accepted sponsorships. But we didn't really have a concept that that there was like a money involved in this or motivation there. It became clear later that people had turned this into the business. But I do think that for influencers, like in my experience, like they forget often that the reason brands want to work with them is because they have trust from an audience.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they'll sell the trust to the brands because they think that the brands are going to be continuing to pay for them. I think politicians do this in some ways too, not to be too political, but they think about their lobbyists and their donors as they get into office. They forget about the people that elected them in office. And I think it's the same thing for influencers. They forget about the people who gave them the platform so that they could get brand deals, and they prioritize the brand deals over the people. And I think if you focus on the brands that you really believe in, that you're really gonna stick by, regardless, it kind of pays off in the long run for your audience, and you continue to maintain that trust, which is important even for you to continue getting brand deals. They're kind of like, and once you start doing that thing where you start diluting it, then the brands don't want to work with you. So you give that up, right?
Yeah,
so you lose
exactly
the audience, you lose the brands. So I think people do forget that, and I see that. It's like, oh, here we go, a new one. This one's better than the last one.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah.
No, that's true. I think too, like, how, having worked with you and seeing the evolution of how you present the information, so I guess I get to see us on both sides, right? Like I get to be the one talking about your products, and I get to also be the one who like talks to you about how you want your products talked about, right? And I think it's interesting watching the evolution and dynamics of this, because like it gets more creative, it gets more fun. Like you get to talk about it at length, more broad details. But I do think Qure is a very interesting and unique brand because of the depth of products that there are. Like how it's not easy to talk about a water filter, to be honest, and like make it exciting, especially like sync one, or it's not easy to talk about the science of an LED mask, at least especially back in the day when maybe we were one of the earlier people to do it and like explain it. And so it does take a very specific person to actually represent Qure probably well. But I don't know.
I think your perfectionism kind of comes through with the products. Like you're sending us stuff and it's like, you sent us an idea 2 years ago. I'm like, where's this product? You're like, oh, we're still developing it. So you're definitely taking your time and really putting thought into it. And like, I do think like it plays well. Like our relationship has grown over the past few years, but I remember when the water filter was in the works, a lot of the brands were focusing on removing chlorine. And I kind of did an analysis of the space. I looked at it. I'm like, really from all the derm studies, like chlorine might be not great for the skin and the hair. But it's really the calcium levels in the water that are really damaging. And so if you could remove calcium, in addition to the chlorine, you'd probably have a better product. And you guys are like, all right, let's focus on that. So I think a lot of people don't see that, like what, the thoughtfulness that goes into the products, the benefits of working with derms beyond just the promotional component, right? But actually getting insights on like what's actually going to work. And I think that's worked really well for us, and overall just super proud of you guys watching the brand grow. And I see we love James well, she's a content creator, and like seeing him post about Qure, I'm like, man, this brand has really come a long way. So proud of you guys, and always good to see you. Now you're on my stomping ground. We met in Charlotte, we met in Dubai, and then now in Miami. So thanks for coming.
No, thank you. And yeah, from us too. Without you guys, I think our journey would have been a lot harder, because I think you guys opened the door and people trust you so much, so then they trusted us. So we thank you guys for the support and all the knowledge that you're giving us in terms of product development and stuff like that. It's invaluable.
Definitely. Thank you for your support.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no. Well, we'll see. We got some very exciting stuff coming from Qure over the next few years. So be on the lookout. Definitely check out QureSkincare.com. Tell us where they can find you.
Instagram or YouTube, just type in Matt Orlick.
I'll put it up on the screen. And Kristina, how can they find you?
Instagram, Kristina Orlick.
That's it.
She was like a little hesitant. Ours Is your account private?
It is.
All right. Well, thank you for coming, and we'll have everyone follow along with you guys. But definitely check out Qure, and we'll see you all next time.
Amazing. Thank you.
Awesome. So glad you're here.